Welcome to Raging Bullets, a DC Comics fan podcast, episode 361. Welcome to Raging Bullets. I'm Sean Whalen, drnorge, and I'm joined as always by my co-host Jim. Geez, I hope I'm not a mouse. So says the sensei of the whatnot, Segulin, and the Duke of You-Know.
How's it going, eh?
Well, you might want to be a mouse, depending on your situation. Jim, on this special episode, I actually, before we start into the show, I want to give a special shout-out. I mentioned on our show website that the show is going to be delayed due to some personal family issues. My mother, who's been fighting for the last 7-ish years, breast cancer, has had some serious health complications. So it's taken up a lot of my personal time. And I called up Jim tonight, and this is Jim, the past, as always, if you want to co-host with somebody on a podcast, Jim Segulin's the guy you want to co-host with. Jim was kind enough to be so flexible. I said tonight, hey, can we just kind of just start riffing on just comics we're enjoying right now and kind of just take a sidebar so that we could kind of do a quick recording, but something that was natural and fun and just kind of a break from the norm, which I always love recording our show. So in this episode, we just started talking about Earth 2 and the current events that are going on there. World's Finest, Green Team, Teen Trillionaires, because we want to talk about some of the new books and the movement. So we want to chat about that. We also talked about, and I want to give a special shout at this, we did at the end of the first segment, we talked about the news about who the big bad is in the Trinity War. And I want to shout that out in the beginning because I don't want to ruin that experience for anybody. We saved that at the end of that discussion. And we do put a special warning in there so you can jump off at that and just jump ahead to voicemails and the closing and all that afterwards. We are proud members of the Comics Podcast Network and the League of Comic Book Podcasts. Sponsoring us this episode is DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. I want to remind everyone over at DCBService.com, they're doing an August 2013 Vertigo bundle. And in this bundle, you get the Sandman Overture #1 cover A, Coffin Hill #1, Hinterkind #1, and Witching Hour #1. This is $18.96 regularly, 50% off, only $9.48. I'm a big fan of these bundles with #1 issues because it's a great chance for you to try out books at a discount to see what fits into your pull list, especially if you're trying to say, I can't get all 4 titles, but I want to try them out to see which ones are right for me. This is a great way to do it, and I always appreciate DCB Service to doing that. Remember that they are a digital partner. Comixology, iVerse Media. This is a great opportunity for you to connect those accounts to DCB Service, and for no extra cost, you earn 5% more towards your DCB Service order. So be sure to go do that over at DCBService.com at InStockTrades.com. InStock Trades is your hardcover and trade paperback source. They have the Nightwing, Old Enemies, New Enemies trade paperback. Written by Marv Wolfman, this collects Action Comics Weekly, 613 to 618 and 627 to 635, and Secret Origins #13. Nightwing teams up with his old friend Speedy as they hunt the villain Cheshire and Roy's daughter. But Speedy has a secret Nightwing doesn't suspect. Really cool material. 50% off. It's a $14.99 book, $7.49 at InStockTrades.com. I love this website because when I'm looking to read material about certain characters or from certain creators, you go there and at 50% off, you can stockpile a lot of really cool trade paperback material. This is great if you're going on vacations. That's a 160-page book at $7.49. Remember, orders of $50 or more give you free shipping. James, what kind of a podcast are we?
Well, we are a spoiler podcast. We go in-depth into plot lines, story twists, and whatnot of the comics we're discussing on the show. So, if you haven't read the books, you may want to come back later so you can better enjoy the show.
Let's talk some comics. Jim, I thought it'd be fun, especially this week with, everything going on my end. I really wanted to talk some comics with you. So I thought it'd be fun to just get together and kind of take a little break from the direction we were going in and just have a quick, casual, fun comic chat, which we haven't had a chance to do in a while. We were just kind of right off the cuff, what are things that are interesting us? And I wanted to immediately talk about Earth 2. I just love this book to death. I'm worried as can be with James Robinson leaving it because to me, it's not at all what I expected. Like, I expected this to be a straight-up JSA book. Like, we're 15 issues in. We don't have the Justice Society of America. I don't know that they're ever going to be formally called that. Maybe they will. Maybe they won't. We have those characters. We have that style of world. But because of events and circumstances, we don't have a JSA yet. I guess I'm assuming this is eventually going to be a team. I don't care. I love the way this book's going pacing-wise. I love that these feel like the tried-and-true classic characters, but it's going in a way that I didn't expect. Really deep character development. I'm getting to know these people from the ground floor straight on through. I feel in 15 issues, there's a lot of characters in this book that I know really, really well. And it's a beautiful book. How is it for you? What is your kind of feeling about things like Earth 2? Are you feeling the same way I am? Or is it hitting you, even if you're feeling the same way, is it hitting you in a different way? What is this book to you?
Well, I'm loving the book just as much as you are. But I'm thinking and looking at it completely different than I did when we first started reading this.
Okay.
Like you, I was thinking, okay, this is going to be a JSA book, yada, yada, yada. And I can't even put a finger on which issue it was. But then it really dawned on me. This isn't a JSA book. This is an Earth 2 book. Mm-hmm. Now, the principal superheroes of Earth 2 are the characters we know as the JSA, but it's not necessarily going to be a JSA book. And I think once that kind of clicked in my head and I started thinking that we're not going to get a formal declaration, the Justice Society of America, dun, da, da, we're not going to have that. Instead, we're going to have a story about this world, about the heroes and the people inside it, the politics, the various behind the scenes and the creepy whatnot that happens on this world. Especially some dark side stuff is going to be bleeding into this. So once I got my head around that concept, my enjoyment kind of like grew, and it kind of magnified. I was like, I'm liking this because this is a much larger picture story than just a simple teen book. And like you, I am worried with Robinson leaving it, because is the next person going to be able to keep that magnitude going? Do we know who the next person's going to be?
I have no idea. I haven't heard anything about that yet. I've heard some I think I heard some speculation, and I'm gonna leave it at that, because whatever I heard, apparently I didn't feel strongly enough that I was committed to it. Can I ask you a question? Did you read the most current issue, number 15?
Yes. Okay.
That guy that's ripping people's heads off with the red eyes and all that stuff, is that Superman?
I don't know. I was thinking.
If you look at the power, the red, they focused on the red eyes. He's ripping heads off. He broke out of Adam's arm. I'm looking at that and, the way he carries himself. He looked to me like Superman. I'm sorry, I cut you off. What were you thinking?
Well, when I first saw the red eye beams, my immediate reaction was the Omega beams, Dark Side, that kind of stuff. But it wasn't. I didn't think it was Dark Side exactly. I was thinking it was one of his people. Mm-hmm. Because I'm not completely familiar with everybody in the crew. So that's I don't know exactly everybody who it could be and whatnot. It could be a son of Darkseid, because we have the daughter. Well, maybe we have a son out there.
Isn't Steppenwolf's army, though, the people that he's creating, aren't they people from this Earth? Am I misunderstanding that? Aren't these creations that he's, warped from this world? Because doesn't he have the one's Wonder Woman's daughter?
Yeah.
So, and here's the other catch. If it's not Superman, is it Superboy?
See, if I'm going to lean on anything, I would say Superboy.
Okay.
That would, because as I said, I wasn't sure who it was, and the thought entered my head about Superman, but I kind of dismissed that, thinking, no, I think he's dead. So then I was thinking, could be, if it's not a Darkseid family member, then I was thinking Superboy. I was thinking possibly a clone. Of Superman, Superman clone maybe. So it's an impure. That's why we're not seeing the exact face yet, and maybe Bizarro, this version Bizarro, but not kind of messed up, but just you think about the apocalyptic technology maybe they could do a Kryptonian clone.
Yeah.
Now, also, because you think about our Earth, the main Earth, Superboy, how he's a clone and everything, his crazy with his storyline. Could he be somehow related to that? Could this be another crossover point?
That's an interesting question. I don't know.
Because you think about it, Superboy is a clone of he's a clone of somebody with Kryptonian DNA, and I'm going to leave it at that because that's a whole nother topic when we go into Superboy. But what if there was other deviation variances?
I'm looking back at issue 1, buddy. We didn't see Superman die. We saw Steppenwolf fire at him.
Yeah.
I mean, he says, Steppenwolf, I'll kill you. We saw him hit by that, but does that mean that Superman was completely wiped out? I mean, is there any possibility that Steppenwolf took him down? Because there was like these machines that were attaching to his face and his head.
Yeah.
And then, there was what looked like that explosion. But we didn't see anything after that. And that explosion took out all of, Steppenwolf's, Darkseid's parademons. But we don't see anything after that. I'm just wondering, and this could be me completely diving. So I'm saying that because I reread this series recently because I like it that much. And I guess that's what's leading me to this. He's the one character I'm like Batman, I'm pretty clear that Batman was a done deal.
Yeah,
the way that, I mean, there is no
pretty good.
Yeah, there's no coming back from that. I kind of get that, but looking at Superman, I don't know, was Superman captured? And I don't know. And this is, I guess, it's one of those theories I'm throwing out there. Just from looking at the way this guy carried himself and the fact that he's coming from Steppenwolf, what's leading me more to believe it is the fact that we got Wonder Woman's daughter. Is that the only one they're going to pervert? And I thought I read somewhere, and this is, again, me throwing something out. I thought I read somewhere them saying that there was going to be an evil Earth 2 Superman or something like that. So I'm not pretending that this was totally from me either, but rereading this, really reinforced to me that it's a possibility. And I don't know. I'm completely convinced I could be, drawing at straws there. Here's the thing. I love that I cared about this series enough to reread it. I love that I care about what's going on in each issue, that I'm speculating. When I do stuff like this, I could care less if I'm completely right or wrong, but I love that I see a guy rip out of Adam's arms, Giant Adam, his arms, and he's taken down Green Lantern, smashing him into the ground. He didn't kill him. He killed other people. He didn't kill him. They left as a group. When they were talking about how did they hope to beat us, and we see the Flash looking up, hold on, this doesn't make sense. Here we are, all of us, out cold and messed up, sure, but I can see we're all alive, we're breathing. Most, anyway. A couple of Dodds guys weren't so lucky, but me, Lantern, Adam, all of us, we were here at their mercy. Why are we still alive? I don't know what that means. So I guess I could be reading way too much into that. But I love that I'm watching those moments and wondering to myself, is that Superman holding himself back? Or am I completely wrong?
Well, it's definitely laid out to have us thinking it is Superman. Whether it actually is or not. Now, the more you're talking, the more I'm liking that this is Superman who had some brainwashing going on, but he's still Superman. He's able to fight it a little bit. He's still kind of in control, but not. Especially when you start thinking about with Wonder Woman's daughter being, the puppet of Steppenwolf and everything. So there's going to be some stuff that he can hold over Superman's head to kind of keep him in line. But I'm curious. I want to see. I do. This is a title that, again, it's talking about this whole universe, and you start thinking of outside the box, off the page, and just the commentary, and what would it take to brainwash Superman? What would it take to get him to do to be the lapdog?
Here's the thing, and the honest truth is, I don't care if it is or it isn't. I mean, sure, it'd be cool to be right. Who cares? The book's that good that it's just fun to speculate and wonder what's going on in these pages. The pacing of this title is incredible to me, because what I really like about it is it feels very unique. to every other book that DC's publishing. And I'm finding that my favorite New 52 titles have that quality, where that title feels like nothing else I'm reading. It's got a special feel. This Casablanca page, there's this 2-page, with Hawkgirl, who, my love for the Hawks. I'm going to go out on a limb right now and say, as much as I'm loving, because I think John's characterization of Hawkman in Justice League of America is spot on, and it's great. This is my favorite Hawk right now. There's something about this character, the Hawkgirl in this one. It's taken me back to the JSA run where Kendra was introduced. And there's just something majestic about it. I'm not knocking, and that's not a knock on what's going on in JLA. But this character of her, the mystery, the investigation that she's doing, we don't have a full handle on everything in her background yet and how she fits into the whole dynamic of the group. I don't know if we're going to get, like you, formal labeling of them as the JSA, but I agree 100% with your... You're saying that this book is Earth 2. Like, even if we get a formal declaration of a JSA team, I don't think it odd for us to have an off issue with the Earth 2 Batman, where maybe he's not on the team. Maybe the Sandman of this world will not join. Wesley Dodds will not join the JSA. So we get a Wesley Dodds issue because that's what the creative team wants to do. To me, that's the way this book should feel. Or that off issue where it was a Steppenwolf focused issue.
Yeah.
Where we got to see the villain side of it. I like that it's about a world. I would like them to eventually band together as a team, and maybe for that team to feel unique. Because to me, I eventually want to see, what do I want to see? The JSA-JLA crossover. I want to see that at some point. I don't think it needs to be rushed. Whenever that happens, it happens. I've heard rumors of it, but I don't know how far in the timeline that is, and I don't really care. But somewhere down the road, I would love to see these characters meet the characters from our world. I would like to see that happen.
Oh, definitely. I do want to see the crossover, but it's funny because I want to see it and I want it to happen, but I don't want to lose, Huntress and Power Girl in the crossover. So it's one of those mixed emotions where I want to see it happen, but if it happens, are we going to risk losing two really cool characters and a really good story? And they want to go home, which I understand, but I don't want them to go home. I want them to stay here.
But what happens if the JLA from our world is somehow transported to this world and they don't know? Like, what happens if neither team knows how to transport back and forth?
Right.
There's
one of those freak accidents.
Right.
Yeah.
And the people are, even if it's this team coming over to our world, what happens if they don't know how to get back and they're transported back and those two are still stuck there? I'm with you. I like Huntress and Power Girl being here very much. World's Finest is... As a matter of fact, I will go out on a limb and say everything I'm saying right now about Earth 2, I firmly feel about World's Finest. It's, again, a very unique feeling book because of the thing you're protecting. I love that.
Yeah.
It's really great that these two are trying to stay under the radar in our world.
And it's quote under the radar in quotes because Karen Starr is just out there. You can't miss her, and I think that's just their personalities and just the bam of her, and then the Huntress sneaking through the shadows. I really do enjoy their individual identities, but you see why they're together. You see why their friendship. Absolutely. They have those common bonds, but they are such different people, just like how we classically look at Batman and Superman. We're still seeing that same dynamics, but there's twists and turns because who they are.
What did you think of Power Girl's costume kind of reverting to a variation of the original Power Girl suit? You know what?
I absolutely love that.
I did too.
When they first introduced Power Girl in this, I liked the full costume, because the one, her quote unquote traditional costume, it always makes me chuckle just because, it's out there and you're seeing it and you're like, okay, really, we know what you're going after. The teenage boys, whose hormones are being driven massively. I understand it. And I kind of chuckled at it because the character never needed that. So when she had that full outfit and everything was covered up, I was like, this looks good. This is a great character. And that they explain how she gets it with her dealings with Supergirl and how that's Kryptonian clothing. So it's going to have that same protection. It's not going to burn up in the atmosphere like all her other costumes. I like the fact that why she has it, where it came from, everything that just came about with its introduction. I now do not have any issue whatsoever with that costume. I think it's like, okay, this is good. This is a good evolution of it.
One of the things that I've really enjoyed about this book was seeing them have issues that are going on because they're here. Like Power Girl's worried about her powers. They seem to be, in her mind, decreasing because she's on this world and she doesn't know why. And I like that mystery. Like, she's still strong. She's Power Girl. She's got that thing about her. The costume change I really liked for a lot of the reasons you're mentioning. It also took me back to, and this is me quoting an interview that I think I read, so take that with a grain of salt. I thought there was an interview with Amanda Connor, or a panel or something with Amanda Connor. If it wasn't Amanda Connor, it was somebody else, but I thought it was Amanda Connor when she was working on Power Girl, mentioning the fact that because she's a female, she would have like different costumes or different variations on her costume, like any woman would have, where, they're trying to like change up their look and personalize and that type of thing. So this kind of harkened to me like that theme, if that makes sense. The first outfit that she started off with, then she went to this outfit, and it would make sense to see her in different outfits. I'm with you, though. I like the storytelling of, with Supergirl and like Supergirl and those type of things. Linking back to what we've seen with these Kryptonian suits in our world and how they're working. Because I like that storytelling. I think that's been a cool thing. Very similar to how I like how Flash's suit kind of evolves around him now. With the New 52, they've taken an opportunity to give some of these costumes a story that is a little bit more modern, and yet fitting to the background of the individual characters. So there's something special and unique to them that isn't just kind of it's the New 52, we're putting in a new suit, so we're going to give you this quick kind of generic story that doesn't really, forward anything. These are actual stories about these costumes that have forwarded our understanding of the characters and their backgrounds and why they need to wear certain things. I like that. To me, that just adds a kind of a realism to it, if that makes sense, in this fantastical world. I like that kind of attention to detail. And the personalities of Power Girl and Huntress are very much the personalities of Power Girl and Huntress as I've always seen them. There's a difference between the two of them. There's a difference in, like, Huntress overcompensates, with being a little bit more violent. I like that there's a little bit of a distinction from her from the one that was in Birds of Prey, but yet it's still that same kind of Huntress motif. She's a little bit more fierce than Batman would be in certain situations, and I love that it's her life experiences has led to that. I really feel like these two have been very well crafted, and I hope people are reading this book, because like you, I want to see this book continue. I want to see it continue along the same theme, and I would even argue, as much as I agree with you 100% in everything that you said before about keeping them on our world, I would continue to read them in their own book if they got back to their world, because I like the characters that much. But I'm saying that agreeing with everything you said earlier, because I'm that into the development of these characters. I would not want to see this book be World's Finest with two other characters, because I want to keep reading these two in their own book.
Yes. I think back to when they first announced World's Finest, I was like, oh, okay. And then they said who it was. I was like, oh, that's awesome, because a nice different take on it and a twist on it. And I thought it was going to be kind of neat. And then as more information's coming out, I'm like, oh, this should be interesting. Oh, wow. And it's these characters, I'm so comfortable with them now. I'm so, set with them. And it's funny seeing them interact with, their versions of this Earth. Like we had Huntress and Damian react, the two children of Batman hanging out and how they develop. Then you have Power Girl and Supergirl, interacting and dealing with each other. It's a slow build that they're having this interaction, and it really has me anticipating when Superman and Power Girl have a meetup, or Batman and Huntress have a meetup. I want to see those moments, and for me, I think it would best happen on this Earth, best dealings that way. And I don't know, it's the stories, just everything that I'm getting out of this has been something that I don't want to say surprised me, because it's a solid creative team and I was looking forward to it, but I didn't think I would be as attached and connected to both titles as I am. I knew I'd enjoy it because there was some talented people assigned to them, but I didn't think I would be this, passionate. I didn't think I would enjoy it as much as I am actually enjoying it, and that I think was a great surprise for me.
I liked back in Earth 2, the Mr. Miracle story, how it was a huge nod back to Jack Kirby, but also I like that Shiloh Norman, it was brought in. The escapologist kind of goes, it has nods to Morrison's run, has nods to Kirby, and yet the relationship between Barda and Scott, and the fact that Barda was one of, Apocalypse and from Darkseid and all that, but then she went and joined up with Scott, and their battles with Fury. All of that just worked really well for me. I like that because this is a new world, I felt worried for Barda in the battle with Fury, because I felt like there was a possibility Barda could die there in order for Scott to escape. Like, when I was reading those pages, I'm like, are they going to kill Barda here? I don't want to see that, because immediately seeing these two together, I want to see them. I don't necessarily need to see them beat Fury, but I need to see them survive together. And there was, in that moment, and if you didn't feel that way, that's cool. But for me, I really felt like, and I don't know why, I don't know if it was because this book is Earth 2, and we've seen character deaths, and feeling like they're not as beholden to, like, maybe some of these characters as they are on our Earth, because I felt like there was a risk factor that I didn't expect. And maybe it was because, they killed off the Trinity, or at least possibly two of them, maybe all three of them. In the start of this, in the start of this, I kind of felt like, wow, there's more danger here for some of these characters, and there was an intensity in that moment where I didn't feel like Scott Free and Barda were both necessarily safe from harm in that sequence. Like, maybe they would do that until Red Tornado showed up, the female Red Tornado,
right,
which I just thought was really great. There's a lot of DC mythos being reintroduced in unique ways in Earth 2 that for some reason I just totally am engaged in, because I know it's an alternate Earth and they're really embracing that, but they're keeping the classic there too. It's such an interesting balance of, this nostalgic feeling for me with, like, wow, that's cool and new. And it's all that amalgamation together that's making this work, because it doesn't all feel like, wow, they've thrown everything out the window, it's all new stuff. No, the classic's there. Robinson and the whole creative team with the visuals and everything, Nicholas Scott, who I adore, they just really have crafted a book here that just has just this unique balance that I have high hopes for whoever's taken it over, that they can deliver this same kind of phenomenon to me. But this is a book that it's on it's easily on my top 5. And it's been since issue number 1 on my top 5 of being just the best of the best that's being published by DC right now, because the world is just so engaging to me. I love every issue that I'm just captivated by them introducing everybody and what they're doing with them, because it's not like a quick little, we're going to introduce this, like the Red Tornado. I know we're going to get a deep introduction to this character at some point. Maybe it'll be the next issue. It'll be somewhere throughout this series. They're really doing a great job. Do you feel there's anybody you don't know in this book?
Well, just the characters are just the new introductions, maybe, but as a general rule, no. They've done a pretty good job. They introduce the main characters, and they go through, and as the pace and the layout for the different character backgrounds have been pretty neat, and how they're telling it within the confines of the story. They're not just doing a straight flashback. It's as the character's using currently, how it's connected to the past. You're seeing the stuff. So, no, I'm pretty comfortable with everybody, and I wasn't comfortable with I really wasn't that comfortable with the JSA before this. Now I'm talking the classic JSA that you're going, oh my God, it ties back to. I don't have that knowledge or that connection with them. I've read some trade stuff. I'm going back and I'm getting, some of the more classic JSAs, but I'm more of the relaunch, the Jeff Johns relaunch era, and up into the end of it. So I'm not classic JSA or classic knowledge. So when they introduce these characters, I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. I'm kind of on the ground floor with it. I don't have the heavy back history, so they can make tweaks, they can make changes, and I'll enjoy it.
I'm leery to call this a team book, but I still want to say, because I've said this in the past, this is my favorite team book that DC's publishing, and because a lot of what you were saying earlier, I don't know if it's right to call it a team book or not. It's an experience. But I guess because there's so many main there's such a large group of main characters on this, that I would call it a team book, but I just am captivated by this world. It's consistent every single issue. I think I anticipated this so much because of the attachment you're mentioning that I have with the JSA. I love the Red Arrow being a part of this. I want to know more about that character. You're right, the new introductions are the ones. And I wanted to know more some of Sandman's red shirts, but... But I mean, as a group, as a book, it's wow, what an engaging experience this book has been. And it brings, I like the fact that they've brought in like the green and the red and the rot, from our world is also present in this world, but it manifests a little bit differently. That they didn't throw those things like out the window. There's a connection between both of our worlds in that sense. I would love to see what Alan Scott is like on our world. Can he tap into it the same way? What would that be like? Or is he going to, because it's a different world, would he not be able to tap in the same way? You know what I mean?
I think he'd have issues. Yeah. Because he's connected to that Earth. It's not the intergalactic police force Green Lantern. It's the Earth, because we saw when he got away from the planet, he started losing his powers. So if he was in another dimension, I don't think he could tap in.
Do you have a favorite character in this book?
Right now, probably Alan.
Yeah, I would say for me, it's Jay Garrick, but I'm with you on.
Yeah, it's a tough call because initially it was Jay, because I liked just the whoa, what's going on here? Yeah, and just how he was kind of the slacker, becoming the hero. But with Alan, as he's starting, I'm seeing the leader. I'm seeing the Alan Scott that I got a knowledge and understanding of. I'm seeing that person come out. And it's kind of neat watching his growth. Now, Jay's doing maturity, and there's a lot of growth in that character, and I'm still getting that same style of the person that I knew and enjoyed in the past. But there's something about Alan. I'm like, man, I want more Alan Scott. I want to see him embrace the role of the hero. I want to see the dun-da-da moment of Green Lantern.
I'm going to completely correct myself and take back everything I'm saying, because I'm looking through these pages again with Hawkgirl and Hazard and Melody, and I want to see her whip them so bad. It's so Hawkgirl for me. Because I think the character development of this character, I'm intrigued by her. I want to know more. It's really, really cool that, like, So I'm going to take it back. I'm going to completely take it back. No disrespect to Jay Garrick, but she kicks so much butt. I love the whole costume design. Yeah. The look and everything is really great for me. One of the things that I think works really well in the writing of this series is the gorgeous visuals with the great character narration where they're narrating from their own perspective. I like when we get these Hawkgirl moments. She's narrating it. So I'm getting to know her personality, her way of speaking, her referencing issues that she has. I feel like I'm traveling with her When Jay Garrick was narrating in the beginning, I felt like I was traveling with him. I think that's a real strength of the book. When Alan Scott narrates, I feel like I'm traveling with Alan Scott. That is a great tool. Narration windows, where you're really in with that character, is a really great way for us to quickly get to feel like we know the personalities and have an attachment to these characters. That's another avenue of balance, I think, in this series. And I would give the same compliment to World's Finest with that. When we have Huntress, running the show and we're with her, she's doing a lot of the narration. Power Girl will do the same thing. But them interacting with each other, we get to see more through their interactions and their dialogue with each other. We get to know more about their personalities as well because, again, they're dropping their masks and being more real when they're together. It's no longer the show they're trying to put on to stay off of the radar, so to speak, on our Earth. It's just these are two books that, since they've come through, I can't think of an issue where I felt like, wow, this was a weak issue of that book or something like that. Every issue has just delivered.
Yeah, they're hitting like a hammer every time.
Yeah.
Just bang, bam, bam. It's, because sometimes you'll get an issue. Okay, it's a building issue, it's a build-up issue, it's a background. But they've kept the action, they've kept the energy going, even when they're building, even when they're developing, because it's a story, then you get the, whoa, what just happened? And it's that kind of high energy and just that constant go, go, go attitude that it's having, even when they have their quote-unquote downtimes. It's still action. It's still moving. They're still up and going. And there's still something happening. Now, what do you think? Because I've been toying around something in my head with Darkseid.
Mm-hmm.
Is there only one Darkseid? Is the Darkseid who invaded, in Justice League #1 the same Darkseid that was here?
Yes. And let me tell you my thinking on that. We see Desaad on our world. I think that's the same Desaad that would have been on Earth 2. This is my thinking. I could be wrong on this, but this is where I'm getting my logic from. And you please tell me if you disagree. I think what we're going to find is that there's one Apocalypse. And I think of the traditional DC multiverse, if I remember correctly, and this is me guessing from what I think I know. So let me clarify it that way instead of me saying, this is gospel. But my understanding for how, and please anybody can call in and correct me, and if Jim, if you think this is wrong, certainly throw it out there. My understanding is while there was multiple Earths, there was only one Apocalypse. Because the JSA and JLA used to have crossovers where they would go to Apocalypse. They had, it was with George Perez did some of the artwork on it. And they were teamed up and they were going to the same one. So my personal feeling is, and that could be some of my bias where it's coming from, Jim, is growing up. One of the most vivid memories I have of a crossover was of them as a team working against Darkseid. And it was the one Darkseid, so it was that situation. So that may be what's clouding my judgment. What do you think, though? You asked the question, which means you've got to have a theory in your head. What is your theory?
Well, this was one of those things where I was going back and forth on, and I was trying to figure out. Initially, I was saying, yeah, there's only one.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'm like, well, what if that's the swerve? What if there's more than one? This guy is different, or and I was trying to just get a solid opinion on it. And it was during the recent Wonder Woman issue where she goes to New Genesis, and just her describing how they're far away from her world, and it gave me that feeling like, okay, there's only one New Genesis. New Genesis is in a different type of dimension. It's not even in its own dimension. It's in its own dimension. It's not even in Earth 2. It's separate from everybody. And I'm thinking if New Genesis is that way, then Apocalypse would be that way as well. So it really, as I'm reading these issues, I'm going back and forth and thinking about it, but it was the Wonder Woman issue that kind of really cemented in my head that there may only be one. And that's part of the reason I brought it up, because I wanted to get your opinion on it and see how you felt on it.
Yeah, actually, first of all, I've been greatly enjoying the New Genesis characters appearing in Wonder Woman for a lot of what you're mentioning. I love your logic there. I wasn't thinking of that. That was really great. But I would say that if you had asked me, is there more than one Orion? I would have said to you, no, there's only one Orion. So you're right. I think that's really the same way that I'm viewing it. I would be shocked to find out that there's more than one New Genesis. I wouldn't have an issue if it's like D squared. There's two dark sides. I think for some reason it's interesting for that guy to be this enigma that both worlds have to deal with, or and then the crime syndicate has to deal with as well. Which is we'll have to talk about that the multiverse. As one question I do have about Earth 2 and World's Finest. We've got Earth 2 as a series. We've got World's Finest as a series. Would you want to see a third book? Like, I'm very torn on that because one of the things I think that's rich about Earth 2 is I like that everything that's going on in there is kind of contained in that book, and they can kind of go, like you said, anywhere and everywhere, and they're exploring that whole world. So there's that part of me I'm kind of answering my own question, saying that, like, I'm very happy with that being contained just because I feel like there's a lot of freedom for the creative teams to explore that world fully. And I think an advantage of having Power Girl and Huntress on our world is nothing that they're doing interferes with what's going on Earth 2. They just happen to be from there. But what are you would you like to see another title set in Earth 2, or how do you feel? Have you thought about that at all? Or?
I haven't really thought about it. Mm-hmm. If they announced it, I would jump on it.
Me too.
In a heartbeat. That would be this is a no-brainer. I'm picking this up, seeing what's going on, just because I enjoy that Earth so much. I enjoy that universe, and I want to see more out of it. Because I literally, when I read the comic, when I'm reading the issues, I'm thinking off page. I'm thinking about what the world is like, what Gotham PD, what Metropolis, what the everyday person on the street is like. Because you think about just the everyday person, they're completely different than our universe. They're even more skeptical of the heroes because you think the couple of the issues where Alan was saying, "Hey, I can use the media, my media company to kind of put a good spin on what we are, get people's confidence back in the heroes again." When they're talking about doing this invasion, when they're talking about going up against, just making themselves known. So I like the fact that we have a skeptic society here, but over there it's even worse because over there they had the massive invasion on an apocalyptic scale that really would turn people off the hero. So I'd like to see more stories set in that type of universe.
I'm with you. I almost wonder, I guess when I think about it, a lot of times I think what I'd really like to see is either a mini-series or a maxi series or whatever, maybe detailing more of the history of the world. I'd love to see what their Trinity was like when they first got together.
Yeah, that'd be nice. A backstory on their Trinity, and I'd run just what you said, a maxi series on the three of them. And if it turns out our mystery shadow guy is actually Superman, that would be a great way to tie it into it, because you can say he could be recalling the times with his friends and whatnot.
Perfect. I love that. There's a lot of different reasons to go in that. I actually wouldn't mind seeing a history of some of the characters that are in there, as they're doing that in the maxi series, maybe as they hit to a certain time point, seeing a young Jay Garrick in there, seeing a young Alan Scott in there, before Powers. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Seeing them out of costume, what was their life like beforehand? Those type of things I think would be real, seeing Alan meet, his boyfriend that got killed for the first time. Those things I think would be really interesting to be introduced gradually. Because like you, I agree, it's a really engaging world. Or, I would read a mini-series with a history of Sandman. Some of these characters that have been operating in the shadows, in the past. I would love to see that. It's a world that has a lot of possibilities to it. And a ton of room. And see, then there's that other part of me that's that's part of the excitement of the book is there's a chance in this book to tell those stories in an annual. There's a chance in this book to tell those stories through flashbacks. There's a chance in this book to tell all those things that you don't need the miniseries. You don't need the extra book. So I guess I'm with you that I would jump on it in an instant, but there's that other part of me that really likes that they don't have it, too. So I could really go either way. Kind of a bizarre answer to my own question, but I like that this is one of those books that I care about enough that I like, saying to myself, what would work, what wouldn't work. I'm very protective of this book, which there's a short list of books that I get really protective of, and when you hear a writer's leaving a book like this, like I'm hoping that the art team stays.
Yeah.
Because I think this is a very pretty book.
Oh, God,
And if not, they really got to get a bang-up art team on this book.
Yeah, this is one of those titles that, man, I wouldn't want to follow them. Because, you got a great writing team, you got a great writer, you got a great artistic team, you've got, there's high standards. So, I'm nervous to see who's going to get it next. Mm-hmm. I need to have somebody who has the same type of passion, who has the same type of fire, but also if it's somebody I don't know, I'm going to be worried because I don't want this to go away. I don't want this to just, disappear into the shadows of, that's Earth 2. We need it for eventual crossover and not let it be Earth 2.
Yeah.
It's got its own life force right now, and we got to keep that going.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that because I did mention earlier that I want a JSA JLA crossover, but I will backpedal a little bit basically on because you made an excellent point. I'll backpedal a little bit and say I would sacrifice that in an instant if it would derail this book.
Yeah.
Because I do not want to see that happen. So, if they've got a great story in them that's not going to derail the... I wouldn't say, we've got to, really ruin the path that this book's going on in order to have that crossover. To me, that won't benefit this book. The unique storytelling that's here has to be preserved. And if it can't be done in a fluid way to do something like that, then you don't do it. It's just that simple because the story should drive those decisions. The decision shouldn't drive the story. And I hope that if that consideration's made to do a crossover, I gotta imagine they've got to have that at some point in time.
They're thinking it, and
it's story driven.
Because I'm thinking it's going to be a Dark Side connected somehow, where he makes his appearance. So he'll be making the appearance of both JSA and JLA. Then they do the crossover and and yada yada.
Jim, can we jump ahead and talk the movement for a little bit?
Oh, okay.
Because I want to make sure we talk about this book because it's Gail Simone and friend of the show, Freddie E. Williams II. And it's 4 issues in now, and we're going to talk about content up to issue 3, just kind of casually right now. I really, because it's another Gail book, and working with Freddie, who's been a longtime friend of the show, an artist that we both, storytelling-wise, know and love. And they're introducing some characters into their, first of all, unique and original characters, but they're also bringing in, like, Rainmaker from, Gen 13 and stuff like that. I really love what they're doing with this title. It's a really unique book. I like that it's a partner book of sorts to Green Team, but they're not really connected. It's like that thematic thing where... the movement's more of this, in this town, you've got these people who are banding together to kind of go against, how would you describe it?
You got the 99 percenters,
yes.
and the Green Team's the 1 percenters. Mm-hmm. And it's, you have just the everyday street fight, the people who don't have, who are, it's the people who struggle to get by, and they're good, honorable people who are fighting for the cause, and they're fighting the corrupt system. And it's when they first started talking about the title, I really wasn't thinking hero side. I wasn't thinking people with meta powers. I was thinking we were going to get this ground movement of what the Occupy movement would be like in a DC universe, where you get the people fighting from the streets and just I kind of had this a more political, openly political story I thought we were going to get. And then when we started getting the heroes, but you see there is that political tie, there is that connection of that age-old story of fighting corruption, of power corrupt, absolute power corrupts absolutely, and what can the everyday person do? What can the just your homeless, your downtrodden, your the people who life has pretty much kicked, spit on and then kick some more? How can they fight back? And we're seeing these people. We're seeing some with the meta powers, but we're also seeing these everyday normal people, putting on the mask saying, hey, we're watching you. You're not going to get away with this. And I love just that whole mindset of we're watching you, where it's, they're keeping an eye on the powers that be. They're keeping an eye on the people who are supposed to protect and serve.
I love that their mask is like a faceless mask, and like that this team, this movement group, is like the voice of the faceless, Yeah. It's like this crowd. And you were talking about the Occupy. You even see at the end of issue 3 when the streets belong to us. Free our daughters and sons. No brutality. We are watching. It's this banding of a consciousness, of an idea that are pulling these people together. And it's really nice. How this book's going. It's not at all. I'm with you. It's not what I expected, but then yet it is. In its own way. It like headed to a place that I thought it was going to go to, but it didn't get there in the way that you would expect. That's something that I really love. And you've got rats. Mice. Who are, I've got to be honest with you, he makes me chuckle every single time. He's sitting there crying over the death of one of his pets, but then like sautés him.
Hey.
I mean, I love wacky characters like that. You've got this story that really is doing some great commentary on the stance of today of, are the 99% being, ignored, and are there elements of them that are being ignored? And what happens when these people band together? Can they make enough noise to be noticed? Can they take a stand that will, act as an agent of change in this world? And I'm fascinated by that. It's funny how a few issues in, the developing story is slowly unfolding. We're getting an idea more of what they stand for. And I like that when you've got a group like this that's at times reactionary, you see that the way that certain members of the team behave are a little bit more extremist than the other members. Mm-hmm. And sometimes, when you step away from the group and you step away from what you've banded together to do, you get yourself into trouble. And I love just the way that this is playing out, and each character has their own unique, well-developed personality. I love that they've got a newer member who's trying to figure out his own role, and in many ways he's like lost in it. Did I do the right thing? Should I be here or should I not? I really love him in this book. They're fresh, they're new, they're original characters that, to me, are just fleshing out. And you can see how these characters would be under the radar of the main heroes. Yeah. They're dealing with bigger things. These characters are dealing with the street level political stuff that really a Justice League can't touch. They get involved in stuff like this, and they're going to be ignoring bigger, larger world problems that are going on. And you can see how in that type of world, these type of problems would be ignored, and how there would be an attraction to joining this group.
Oh God, yeah, and it's funny because when you think about the real life Occupy movement, mm-hmm. I was not one of those people who are very gung ho towards the Occupy movement. I was like, oh, okay, whatever, guys. It didn't draw my attention. It didn't have me going, yeah, they're doing the right thing. But when you're reading the movement going on, I'm getting behind these guys and I'm backing them, and it's part of the storytelling that it makes sense why you need to support these people, why they need your strength, why they need to band together. And again, it's the connection, enjoyment, and agreement with the heroes immediately. And it's something that, you kind of need to have to really get into the title. And I'm sitting here and like, how many times have we had when we've done reviews of the different stories of Batman? We're like, I didn't really like the Batman, so you didn't like the title. Well, with this, we like these heroes, even some of the wacky ones, even the ones that I don't completely know what their deal is yet. But I still like them. I still agree with them. I still understand where they're coming from. And I'm still, if I was in this world, I'd have their back.
One of the things that I really like about this book, and I hope people give books like this a chance, to me, I've liked that with each issue, I felt more and more attached to the concept of the book and the characters. It's been a gradual build, and with each issue, there's characters that are spotlighted, that are on the team. Which team is an interesting way to, because there really are, the title, The Movement, is perfect because it seems like as they expand into places, we start to see more and more people become members of what they're doing. I also like the idea that the masks, for some reason, seem to make people feel more confident to stand with them and to voice, because they're not afraid of repercussions, per se. Do you get that to be like kind of a theme there?
Oh, definitely. And you see it in the real world where, people who, they call into a radio show, the telephone tough guy, where they're just, an anonymous voice that's talking, or they're just a click on a message board or a tweet, a Twitter or whatnot. It's as long as they're not sitting there, as long as you don't see who they are, the people are the bravest in the world. So in the real world, you put that mask on, you cover up your face, you kind of hide, and you're hiding in plain sight, but you still have that confidence that you're still thinking, okay, if everything goes wrong here, I can run and hide and drop this mask and say, I don't know what it was. So there is that, protection of your identity. So if your identity's safe, then you can say whatever you want to say.
Yeah, I like the idea that there's people from all walks of life. And that in many ways, she's trying to convince, we see her almost trying to convince the captain of, hey, this is what we're all about. You thinking about us? Or do you? I like to even ask the question, if you ever do think about us. Saying that we are largely ignored by the establishment. Mm-hmm. Are you ignoring us? Or are you thinking about us? And what do you think of us? Do you really understand us? Have you given us enough of a thought where you do know? It's really, really interesting. I like when she tapped him on the head, though. She goes back to his house and it's like, sorry about your wife. Probably not the best way to endear yourself to somebody.
Yeah, that's not a good opening line there. You gotta,
But when you have powers like that, where they kind of take over, that's something that's interesting when you've got fresh characters who aren't a part of a Justice League. They haven't been formally trained. These are people who are metas that, through circumstance, have banded together, and they respect her, so they're following her. But even so, you've got the one character who kind of jumps off the blip and isn't, kind of goes and does her own thing and gets herself.
She goes rogue.
Yeah, and I really enjoy that about the team. These are characters that I want to get to know. I feel like every issue I'm getting to know them. Do you hear that little girl, Daddy Spank? Nice reference back to the classic Batman that had to have been a nod back to all that. There's jokes, there's humor in here that are they aren't out of place to the pacing of the story. We're dealing with deep, strong issues that it has the balance that I love from Gail Simone of knowing when to put humor into a situation that feels buddy cop at times when it needs to, or you've got a character like Mouse who he's just crazy, but yet you love that character. Like if they ever got rid of him in the book, I would scream for him to be back.
He'd definitely be one you want to hold on to.
You know what this is? This is everything I loved about Welcome to Tranquility. Unique, quirky, strange characters with very serious, deep-rooted stories. a nice nod to classic characters like bringing Rainmaker in. Let's get some, great use of these Wildstorm characters, because I loved her characterization of those Gen 13 characters, so I'm glad that she has an opportunity to bring somebody in. This is really cool stuff. It's exactly what I love, and I hope this book's getting some notice. If you didn't pick up the movement, give it a shot, because it's real easy to grab this on the ground floor. I do recommend that you read at least a couple issues to really get a grasp of where the story's going and how it's developing. It's not one that I would recommend just reading issue 1. I would say grab issue 1, 2, and at least 3 to just kind of give yourself a feel for the universe. I don't know if you feel the same way. I do feel it's a book that's better served reading a few of the issues in to get really a flavor for where it's going, but maybe you disagree.
Oh, no, I definitely solid agree with you that, give yourself some read into this. And it's funny because you said unique and quirky characters, but I'm going to add something to that. Unique, quirky, but still realistic.
Yes.
Now as you do have to put quotes around realistic because they are metas. They are meta superhuman powers, but their reactions, their dealings with the real world seems real to me.
Yeah.
So even Crazy Mouse, he's still, there's still that I can, there's probably, you deal with enough different people. There's probably someone out there say, hey, I know a guy just like that, and everybody has their own peculiarities. And I think that each one of these characters have their own strength, have their own weaknesses, have their own personalities. It does add that element of realism to it. And you can sit there and say, okay, yeah, I could see somebody doing that.
The Gulf War veteran that's followed, the one who is asking for money on the streets, that was a very real world. I like that this book's street level because it feels very grounded in reality. There's something unique to it, but it's because you add metas into the mix. That's what I meant by quirky, and you totally got it. That's something that I really love, that you get these settings in there where you see people like the guy walking a little further away, questioning why Shauna's putting money in there. Saying, come on, Shauna, guy's got to turn right around and spend it on drugs. The city ought to do something about people like that. And then you see, the veteran saying, never mind, Jimmy, she was nice, wasn't she? That kind of stuff I'm really into, where she's talking about there's enough here for food. So he's not a druggie. He's down on his luck, and it just shows that, just because somebody's begging on the street or, needs some extra money doesn't mean that person's always going to that. Can it mean that? Absolutely. But he's not going to find out anyway because of, the guys coming after him. That kind of stuff, just I love that this book is moving at a pace where you're constantly getting a changing view of the world of the movement. Actually, a lot of the compliments I gave to Earth 2, I can give here. And it's very different from Earth 2. But one of the things I love about the pacing of Earth 2 is you stay focused on a certain character for a certain amount of time, and then they shift over to this scene, where we're showing you just a little other perspective of the world that's around them. So each issue of this does the same thing, where, Gail Simone does not keep us in one area too long. Nobody overstays their welcome in the movement. We've got, some great issues. It's a gorgeous book. I'm loving the art and color work of these characters. It feels very today, very modern, very trendy. It's, it's one of the things that you want from a new book, is just a chance to kind of go wild with, these are different character designs. I love when Mouse is hanging around that guy's neck and he's almost chewing on it. My focus on Mouse is almost constant. It's like, where's Mouse? This book, really, they could change the title from The Movement to Where's Mouse Now? And that would fit for me. You've got this amazingly cool story that's going on throughout the issue and the constant quest to find more Mouse. Which fits this title a lot for me. It's a very special book for me, and I wanted to make sure, because especially now that we're 4 issues in, I've been talking to Freddie. I would love to have him come on the show, but I wanted to wait to talk with him until you and I had a chance to really talk about it from a fan perspective, because it's a book that's special and important to me, because you've got two people that I adore as creators. Yes. I'm a huge fan of both of these. And you put them together on this book, and wow, is it a home run for me. it goes to everything. When a new title comes in, what makes a new title rise up my stack very quickly? It's what are you giving me that's different from what I'm reading? The focus of this book is giving me something very, very different from what I'm reading right now, and yet has all of the elements that I love from my favorite comics. The movement is a hit. If you're not reading this book, especially if you dismissed it after the first issue, I highly recommend picking up a couple more issues and really seeing what this book is all about, because I don't think you can do it in one.
No, you got to get the groove going, and you got to see it as it's a story that's layer on layer and layer, bam, and that's kind of, it's a build, but it's a really cool build process. And as you said, it's some beautiful artwork, so pick it up and you can enjoy that.
Oh, it's a pretty book.
Oh, yeah.
This is a well put together creative team. Can we talk Green Team real quick and kind of leave off there?
Oh, sure.
Because I kind of, this is kind of blanking off my hour kind of edict there. But these are both two books, and I think we'd be kind of remiss if we didn't talk about these two together. So
they kind of do go hand in hand with each other. So it's, yeah.
And they were meant to be put out that way. So we've got the Green Team, Team Trillionaires, and one of the things I love about this book is couldn't be more different than the movement. You've got people running around that are sons of millionaires and billionaires, and they just have loads and loads of money. And they're put into these adventures where, because of the Hollywood, high-end, high-profile lifestyle that they're in, they're put in positions where they're buying and selling things and getting involved in conventions and circumstances like Commodore. I love that Commodore is the boyfriend, quote-unquote, boyfriend of this Hollywood starlet, only because of the fact for the two of them, it makes a high-profile situation, but it's really Commodore's close friend that is the real boyfriend of the Hollywood starlet, who's sacrificing his own ability to have a public face with her to make sure that her career goes forward. This is all framed in a world where, because of circumstances, they get involved in these suits that were bought, through this underground that only, your richest are going to be able to get a hold of. And they're being hunted for some of the materials. I love this stuff. I think it's really, really great. I also love that because they don't know what they're doing, similar to when you hear about high-profile Hollywood people or high-profile millionaires getting involved in this wonder drug or this other thing that has these side effects that they didn't know about because they weren't thinking first. She's stuck with this metal arm because of it. What a great story. That kind of stuff just totally fits this world. I like that, was it Cecilia's boyfriend is somebody who I immediately like. He's constantly worried about, is her relationship with Commodore going to eventually bump me out? Is she getting more and more into his world and less in mine? To me, he's my latch-on character because he's more, even though he is more in the rich world than us, he seems like he's visiting there versus being entrenched in it. So for me, a lot of times, I don't know if you're finding the same thing, he becomes kind of my avenue into the story. Like, he's my reality check, my latch-on point, and I feel like I'm following him and kind of seeing the world through his eyes. But what are your feelings on this book? Or what are the characters that you're noticing, and how do you see this book?
Well, we got a very similar viewpoints of it. I'm definitely enjoying this title, and it was another thing where I didn't know what to expect because they, when they're billing the two together, you got the movement, the ground, level, and you got the, team green team. You got the rich. I'm like, okay, rich and powerful. What kind of? And immediately you always get the notion of rich and powerful, spoiled brats, the Hollywood starlets, the famous for not being, famous for no reason, just famous to be famous. All the pitfalls that we get in a lot of modern culture. And I was thinking that's going to somehow play out in the DC universe. I was like, oh, okay, should be interesting. But we are getting people who are trying to do the right thing, who are trying to do good. And I like the fact that what the Commodore does with those sci-fi conventions, and he's throwing out money to people who normally would never have a chance of having a sit down, a one-on-one with him. These are people who do not have the correct connections to get a meeting with the Commodore, to get a meeting with the right people, to get their inventions going. It's kind of like one of the shows I really enjoy watching is Shark Tank. And it's part of it is because you see new and different things, but also I like the fact that the entrepreneur is getting this chance to have a sit down with some of the big league players, big league money people with a lot of connections, things that could make their company go boom. And I really I like seeing that side of Green Team where we got those moments. And then you get the prince's son who wants to show his father, hey, I can make money, I can grow the business, and so he's a little bit hungry, so he's trying things his way. And it's these characters, even though I'm so different from all of them because it's they live in a completely different type of world, you still do have a connection with them because it is still that same son who wants to earn the father's approval. You got somebody who wants to do the right thing, who's using their approaches, but he doesn't have all the answers. He's got to play by a couple different rules. Then you mentioned with the the couple that wants to be together but really kind of can't. There's hints and there's other issues going on with them. So I liked seeing these characters and having a connection to them.
Perfect. And one of the things I like about, you mentioned Muhammad, and I love his bodyguard.
Yes.
When he has a connection because of his background to Deathstroke. And the respect between the two of them because of the circles that they've traveled in is real interesting. But yet his clear loyalty to Moe's family is there. And that interesting part where he and Deathstroke, because of the fact that they've run in those same circles, there's a respect between the two of them where he can put the brakes on certain things that Deathstroke's doing, and Deathstroke will give him a nod because there's a respect there. There's something about that I find that's really interesting. Moe's another character that I find myself attached to, and I think it's because of the fact that he looks up to Commodore, kind of the way we, geek out about our own things that we're fans about at conventions and stuff like that. He's the convention goer in the upper class, which, I'm with you. I'm never going to be a part of that world, but because of the fact that he's going in as the geeky convention, the geeky rich convention goer, I'm like, okay, I get where Muhammad's coming from. He's kind of our guy in that world, and he's real cool. Go ahead.
Well, and you mentioned Deathstroke because I loved his appearance in this book just because everything you said, but also I loved how that whole thing wrapped up and how it came to be because they contracted Deathstroke to help them catch one of the bad guys. Not the head, not the leader, just one. And that was the exact wording that he used. And I love the fact that he held them to the exact wording. It was the exact letter of the agreement, not the meaning of the agreement. And so Deathstroke, fine. I caught the one. Now, is it going to help them find out, who is behind it? Probably not. Did Deathstroke know it at the time? Probably yes. But, hey, contract's the contract. And I thought that was just a cool moment where you get, again, you still see the honor of Deathstroke, but he is a killer. He is not a nice guy. He's not going to go above and beyond what the contract said.
I love that Deathstroke's appearance, when I first thought about it in this book, I'm like, oh no, it's going to be like a cheesy Deathstroke appearance. And it so totally was everything but that because of the relationship between him and the bodyguard.
Yeah, spot on just characterization of Deathstroke. That's the same Deathstroke I've read in his series. I've read him in any other appearance. This is something that I'm digging about the DCU now, that we're getting these characters when they're in different books, they feel the same. And Deathstroke is one of those, he's one of my favorite villains. I really dig the guy. So seeing him in this book and reading him correctly, having, yes, this is the Deathstroke that I know, this is the Deathstroke I think is a cool character, bam, they kept with it. I was really excited and very happy as it played out.
I liked Riot, the whole theme of Riot, being able to transfer from one body to the other. Transfer the pain from one body to the other. That's how they're able to take so much damage. I want to know, who was underneath the mask. That mask was ripped off. Oh, my God, I thought you were dead. I have no idea who that is.
Yeah.
But I'm interested. This is a world that's, again, very similar to what I said about the movement. One of the things I'm loving about this is it's a completely ground-level book. The Deathstroke appearance was great because it felt like it really, the writers, Art and Franco, took a really great look at what makes that character work and how he should fit in this world, which I feel like a dolt for feeling like it was going, when I saw that, I'm like, I don't know about Deathstroke in this. Oh my God, when I remember in the issue, I keep forgetting. These are the guys that wrote Tiny Titans. These are like the biggest Teen Titans fans around. Yeah. If there's anybody who's going to nail Deathstroke out of the park, it's these two guys. And oh my God, did they do it. It's a beautiful book. I really like the style of it. The style matches the direction of the title. And the character, I love that there's a villain, in Riot that I immediately found unique and interesting. And it's got everything that I want from a new series. This is another one. When I heard this book, I'm kind of like, at first I was like, wow, how am I going to feel about this one? Are people going to pick this up? 3 issues in, I'm hoping people give, if you got that book where you're kind of like, I'm not having fun with this one right now. The Movement and Green Team are 2 books that are really well done by DC, that are very different than anything out there. They're good books to try if you've got a couple books in your stack right now where you're like, I kind of want to play around a little bit and see if I can find a new title to get attached to, because this is a book that's just not getting me excited anymore. These are 2 books that I would highly recommend as being, they're only 3 issues or 4 issues in the case of Movement. It's easy to get on board these books, and it take some of your budget that like maybe you're not having so much fun with and give these 2 books a shot, because they're different, they're unique, and there's a lot of potential for where these books can go in the future. I do try to do that when I've got some books that like I'm not so into anymore. That's when I drop those books and make some room to try books, a couple independents, a couple other titles. And these, are basically, the DC Universe independents. These are 2 books that I could see them flying under people's radars because of the fact that they're not Superman, they're not Batman, but great creative teams that are developing unique and different stories. And wow, it's great to see Art and Franco on a book where it's not an all ages book. And I adore their all ages material, so please don't take me wrong on that. It's just great to see that when you get them to see them in a different genre, a different venue, a different age group, they are just as good storytellers as they are on the all ages material. They're just, I think they're true talents. They proved that already with their all ages material, and it's great to see them just branching out into something else. I want to see more work from them because I just think what they're doing, any work that they do, is really, really great.
Yeah, I think this is like the first really reading this type of book for me from them. So I was all in when they announced me. I go, I want to read this just because I think they're talented. So I was like, oh, okay, this should be kind of interesting. But I gotta admit too, I was very, very pleasantly surprised at just the story I was getting, because I never I've always enjoyed their stuff. I've always picked it up and laughed, and it was something that it was always that palate cleanser, that thing that I always could reach to when I was having a bad day. And even if I'd read the issue like 2 or 3 times, I could still pull it out and read it and laugh, and it would make things better. So I knew there was creative talent there, but I never really clicked that we would get these kind of stories and they would just be a more, I don't want to say traditional comic, because it's not really a traditional. It's its own entity, but it does have. It's not the all age appropriate. It's it's a comic book. It's the real, and I don't want to say the real thing, implying the others aren't, because the others are. But it just, what I mean. I'm like, I'm tongue tied here.
I want to shout out Thrillbent.com, which is digital comics. All Yeah Comics is there. If you picked this up. I did the Kickstarter for this. Did you pick up any of this?
No, I didn't.
This is their new all ages book. And if you're missing your Tiny Titans Superman Adventures fix, I cannot recommend enough All Yeah Comics. It's that type of material. But it's not just them. They've got a team of people that are doing, it's kind of like an anthology, but it's, totally characters in the same vein of Tiny Titans and Superman Adventures. It's that kind of story. And if you go to Thrillbent, that's a great way to kind of get a taste of it, and then you can pick up the regular comics and stuff like that. But it's awyeahcomics.com, AWYEAH comics.com. And, they have blindwolfstudios.com, artbaltazar.com, all those different things. They even have a podcast. And it's just really terrific material. For me, I need an all-ages fix. Their humor has always hit me. It's my replacement for Tiny Titans and Superman Adventures. It's Superman Family Adventures, I should say. This is it's exactly what you're expecting if you haven't had that. So I just wanted to shout that out real quick because they did a Kickstarter to get that book going, which was very successful. And I just encourage anybody who is missing those books to please immediately jump over and support that material, because it's the same kind of great gags and storytelling that you love from Tiny Titans. That's good stuff. Jim, one other quick thing, and then we'll wrap up. And I actually want to put a disclaimer on this one, a special extra spoiler. If you don't want to know who the big bad is in Trinity War, jump off here. And just jump in the show notes to the closing for this episode, or jump to voicemails. You can kind of just jump off at this point. Okay, that being said, the big bads in Trinity War are the Crime Syndicate. Nice. Earth 3.
Yeah.
So now we're seeing an expansion of the idea of the multiverse. I guess I'm guessing it's Earth 3. So we're seeing that kind of come into this world, and they're the ones that are going to be taking over. The Justice League's going to be replaced by them. We're going to see what happens in our world when it's run by a Justice League that's evil. I love that. To me, that's going to be really cool to see at this point in time in the New 52, that this event has led to a world without our heroes where not all of the villains are going to agree with them. In particular, I could see that being an issue for Lex Luthor, who basically, to me, the more I've been thinking about this, Ultraman is the realization of everything he's feared about Superman. This is almost his validation, right?
Yeah, pretty much. This is the kind of stuff that he was always worried about with Superman, with the heroes, and why they need Lex Luthor around. So I want to see Lex deal with these guys. And I always wonder if Lex is going to be the one to turn around, because we know it's going to eventually go back to where the heroes are around and the heroes are running things and whatnot. I always wonder if Lex is going to be the savior of our universe.
Our Flash Gordon?
Yeah. Lex Luthor!
Oh, no.
Oh, you got me going. Come on.
Yeah. You're no queen. But it is one of those, and I admittedly I did set that one up. But I'm actually loving this concept. The more I think about it, it makes sense. It makes sense that Owlman would be the one that would be able to shut down. I guess I'm assuming I've tried to deliberately not read too much on this other than I've seen the image.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm assuming they're from Earth 3. I can't think of any other reason why, which means that would be the Earth 3 Alfred, who's the outsider?
That's what I'm thinking. Once I heard Crime Syndicate, that was my thought process. And just like the person who broke into the Batcave was either Owlman or was that Alfred. I'm still kind of holding on to as that Alfred.
Yeah, unless it would be interesting to see, because that would also explain why Bruce wouldn't have thought to account for him.
Right, because it's Alfred.
Yeah.
It's not like it's somebody else or a different genetic. It's Alfred, so that would be the okayed. And it's because last time we talked about this possibility of them, I threw out the thing like, would Bruce prepare for it? When we had their conversation before, I said I wouldn't have an issue if he didn't, just because the concept of the multiverse never really came up. After this happens, I fully expect Batman to have protocols against this.
Yep.
And he will, and we'll probably even see him implement them. And my guess is that's how one of the things that's going to help, bring the turnaround, because Bruce is an improviser, but it is kind of neat seeing this play out. And I want to know because the first thought that popped in my head is, what if the Batman who right now is running around is actually Owlman? in the cape and cowl, and it's not actually Bruce. Could he fool everybody else?
Well, they said that there was a mole. And we do see in one of the issues, the Forever Evil issues, that there is a Batman on the cover with Lex Luthor. So who is that? That doesn't mean that it's Owlman, but right. It could be.
Definitely, because you think, even though the character like Clark knows him, and Diana knows him, but they still really not, everybody doesn't know him well enough that he could maybe pull it off. He could maybe fool them, just depending on how good Owlman is. So there could be that, or I don't know, maybe there's somebody else is the mole. And I'm wondering if we're going to get a swerve on who we're thinking the mole is.
Which I have no issue with at all.
Yeah.
I'm really enjoying the story so far. I'm enjoying. See, it's funny. Like, did this reveal ruin the story for you in any way?
Not at all.
Because we still don't know how we got here.
Right.
So it's funny how there's been speculation already who that guy was, the outsider, that he was, in fact, the Earth 3. So I guess it wasn't to me like, oh, my God, they went to the crime syndicate. I never saw that coming. They ruined it for me. That speculation's been there. To me, what's the interesting part that's still on the table is how do we get from where we're at now to our heroes being off the table?
Yeah. Yeah, because that was the thing I'm wondering, do the heroes get pulled off of Earth? And get dropped onto Earth 3. Mm-hmm. That was my first thought, is how it's going to play out. They physically won't be around, and that's why Evil's able to run the gambit, because they removed them. Mm-hmm. Now, if that happens again, crossover, how are they getting back? Could this be part of bring in Earth 2 into the mix? Could this be, you think about Cyborg with his apocalypse technology. He's able to do some mother box and some teleporting that way, and maybe he can figure out a way to bring them back. And it could open up just the paradoxes, open up the multiverse to the JLA. Actually, show them, hey, this is what's out there. So we could definitely get some neat dimensional travel after this.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see where this goes. I like that this, and then we're going to get Grant Morrison's Multiversity series and stuff like that coming down the road. Like, the timing on this is really good. If Multiversity comes out, sometime shortly after this, it's a great time to reintroduce the concept of the multiverse. So I'm really excited to see how that goes, because to me that's a unique part of DC's lore. That if you don't reintroduce that into this New 52, you're really missing an opportunity. Especially with, to me, what a great experience Earth 2 is. But I'm glad they didn't jump to that right away. We're 15 issues in of Earth 2, 14 issues in of World's Finest. We haven't really gotten to the point yet where, those books have been established for over a year. And we haven't oversaturated with the idea of the multiverse. We're gradually adding more pieces to the puzzle we're building. This was what they talked about doing when they introduced the New 52. They were saying, as time goes on, we'll reintroduce the lore that you're used to. We're in a new and unique way that fits, but also will feel familiar. This is starting to feel all of those things to me in a way that makes sense. So it gives me high hopes that in the future we're going to get more and more of the characters and concepts and things that we all know and love reintroduced in a way where, they're given a chance for some concepts that they've had on the back burners to maybe get an attach rate. And I hope people give these new concepts a shot. That's why I wanted to shout out books like The Movement and Green Team, because I'm a Superman, Batman junkie. I'm a Wonder Woman junkie. I love the whole... And when I say Batman, I mean the whole Bat family. I think they've got some of the best creative teams on Batgirl, Nightwing. Teen Titans kind of fits in its own category. But they've just got amazing creative teams on these books. Batwing right now I think is just, hitting full thrusters. So you got all these cool books that are being developed in their worlds. Superboy, Supergirl, all that kind of stuff. Flashback. I like to have these kind of unique books as well. Your Earth 2s, your World's Finest, and then getting into your smaller books like The Movement and Green Team that are hitting in places that DC. It takes me back to books like Prez, those characters that DC has in there, where you've got these cool, quirky, grounded street level characters that are hitting on something. I'd love to see Superman or Batman in The Movement at some point. We saw Deathstroke in Green Team. He was brought in a way that makes sense to that book, though. It wasn't just a cameo for the sake of having it. It was a cameo that totally fit the situation they were in, and a character that wasn't out of place in that book. And I love that I was swerved to think to myself, oh, I hope that this doesn't kind of derail what I'm liking about it. Exactly the opposite. It further enhanced what I'm already loving about that book. So if any of, the characters from the DC Universe proper make an appearance sometime soon in The Movement, I know it's going to be in the same vein of what we saw in things like Green Team. So I'm hoping these books have a longevity to them. I'm hoping people are giving them a shot because I think they're just as important to the DC Universe as some of the books with some of the larger, more well-known characters are. And we need that to keep it a rich, fresh universe. Who knows what characters in The Movement, like Mouse, are going to be your next Cassandra Cain, Stephanie Brown, characters like that. You've got to give these new characters a chance and support them. And if you find that you love them, I'm not asking for blind loyalty to these books. If you find that one of these two books we just shouted out today are your cup of tea, let people know. Start a movement to get those books out there, because these are characters that become very quickly somebody's favorite because they're hitting them in a way that they didn't expect a comic could. And you want these books to be around for a while. I'd love these books to be runaway hits that develop characters that have the same kind of passion for them that you have for a Stephanie Brown and a Cassandra Cain. I throw those characters out, and Wally West. These characters that people are missing right now that used to be kind of background characters that came to the forefront in their major books. And I want to see those characters back there. The Starman and characters like that were like that as well. And I want more Mouse. I want more Green Team. I'm enjoying these books.
We are Crystal Men from Mercury. We have no quarrel with you.
Hey, Sean, Jim. This is Brandon calling out New Orleans again. I actually listening to the show while I'm at work right now doing some paperwork. And I had to pause in the middle of your argument because for once I had to call and say, Sean, you were wrong on the Batman not knowing there's alternate Earths. Sorry to disprove you real quick, but I've read the Batman and Superman #2 that came out a couple of weeks ago from I can't recall the writer right now in that work, so I don't have the book with me, but in that book, Superman and Batman, when they first meet up in the New 52 in our Earth, travel to Earth 2, and they meet Earth 2 Batman and Superman before they bite the dust and before the whole apocalypse thing happens on their Earth. So Batman would be aware that there are multiple Earths, and Batman would prepare. Never doubt the Batman. When in doubt, trust Batman. So you gotta always remember it's Batman.
I will definitely concede that argument, except here's the problem. Take a look at who the villains are, and that means Batman hasn't accounted for that, at least on some level. So it's going to be very interesting, unless I'm wrong. It'll be interesting to see how it plays out for that. But I agree with you. Actually, and that was a great issue. So it's going to be interesting to see how all of this plays out, because he knows, but I don't think he knows about the villain coming over. So there'll be some interesting twists and turns as this thing goes on, which makes it fun. That's the fun, geeky stuff. I actually love the way that the Batman Superman is taking a look at avenues of the New 52 that we haven't seen yet. And I'm going to be very curious to see how the Superman Wonder Woman or Wonder Woman Superman book, whatever they're calling that one, comes and see if that does Is that going to be current continuity or past continuity? Because I think it's going to play on their relationship, which means that would be what's going on right now with the two characters, which is cool. But there's also opportunities with both of those books to tell stories in the present day and in the past, which I'm a big fan of. You know, like, show us more of these characters, because we've got a whole span with these characters where maybe we don't know what their relationship was like and what the world was like. So that's great stuff. But you're right. Yeah, that's it's kind of cool to see how that happens. That's one of the things I love about voicemails. Like, this sparks a discussion now about what did they know and what didn't they know.
Hey, Sean, Jim. My name's Logan. I'm calling out of Texas. I'm 20 years old, and I'm a new reader, and I've been reading for about a year. And, what got me into comics was I was playing the Batman Arkham games and realized how much I loved Batman and that I hadn't read any of the comics. So I did what any normal person would do. Whenever they have a revelation like that, I went to Barnes & Noble and I picked up the ones that looked good. I bought Year One, The Killing Joke, and I actually bought... it's called Mad Love, and it's like a compilation of stories that took place during the animated series. I saw that because I used to watch that show whenever I was a kid, and I loved it. And the comic was a lot of fun. It's kind of an anthology in a way, and it ranges from stories about the Joker, of course, with Mad Love and Harley Quinn, but also Scarecrow and Scarface and all of them. But you guys are my first podcast I've been listening to since I started, and I only have one other, and that's Talking Comics. I realized that I love comics, so I just started reading them. And actually, after a while, I've become more of a Marvel guy, because I remember I had old Marvel trading cards whenever I was a kid that my uncle actually gave me, that me and my friends would sit around and we'd just look through them and have a great time arguing about who would win in a fight and all that kind of stuff. And, I really like that Matt Fraction's Fantastic Four and FF stuff and his Hawkeye. His Hawkeye is awesome. And Mark Waid's Daredevil, that's some of the best stuff I've read. And Kelly Sue DeConnick's Captain Marvel, I just finished up her run that she's doing right now, and it's something special. But right now, I would say in DC, my favorite thing going on, even though I know the Trinity War is going on, and I'm loving it. I actually haven't been picking up any of the Justice League stuff, not because I didn't want to, but because of money reasons. As I'm here on the podcast, you guys understand. But I've been picking that up, the Trinity of Sin and Pandora and all that kind of stuff. I was surprised at how much I loved Pandora's Trinity of Sin. I was kind of wary about it and wondered if I could skip it, to save a little money and buy something else. But I went ahead and got it, and it's actually a really touching story. I thought the things that happened to her in that story and the reaction to the things around her and who she meets along the way and just the overall torture was almost difficult to read, as I was thinking of how terrible it would be to go through something like that. And I'm excited to see where this Trinity War is going. I'm not, being a new comic book reader, I'm not too familiar with big events or anything. I've read through some events with Marvel and some of the past events with DC and stuff, and I find that they're pretty cool. I'm not, gonna be honest, I'm not just a huge fan of hero versus hero all the time. I wasn't a big fan of the AVX stuff that went on and with Marvel and stuff. And I'm hoping that Trinity War doesn't end up panning out to be like AVX, but because I'm really excited about the way these things are going. I just read Justice League Dark just a few minutes ago, and it was awesome. I know you guys are. I just listened to your show, and you guys are fixing to talk about this one. You may have, if you've already recorded by the time you hear this, but but I love the art in that book. The art in that book is incredible. I've seen Wonder Woman drawn several different ways in this New 52, and I really like some of the sketch stuff I've seen of her, but in Justice League Dark, I was actually just astounded by how well the colors and the way the lines are drawn. They're so confident. It's quite mesmerizing. I found myself almost being I don't mean this as a negative thing, but it almost works as a negative thing. That I was almost being pulled out of the story just to stare at the art for a long time, which I usually do in like a second or third read through. But that one, I just couldn't help myself. I thought it was awesome. I haven't been reading Justice League Dark, and I don't know if the art's been that good since the beginning, but I might just start picking it up from the beginning. But my favorite book, I kind of went off on a tangent there, but my favorite book right now has got to be Snyder's Batman with the 0 year he's got going on. But I'm nervous about this Villains Month that's going on. Do you think he's planned knowing that this was coming, planned it out to where it would work organically, or do you think he's going to skip a month? I haven't been able to look up anything, and I try to avoid looking up things about comics because of how easily spoiled he can be just by even searching a comic name. Just by putting 0 year in Google, you're liable to learn all kinds of stuff about it that you didn't want to learn until you actually read. So I was wondering if you guys had any theories on what might happen with 0 year, being that it seems to be taking, I mean, of course it's taking place in a different time period, but are we going to see some books that tie into the Villains Month with 0 year, or do you think they're going to take a break from it? I really hope they don't take a break. I really hope it just keeps on going with what's going on, because I feel like it's kind of taking place in its own little area right now, and it needs to stay there. And I'm really loving the fact that I can say that I'm reading a Batman book that so far has only had Batman show up once, but he's in the daylight and he's got short sleeves and he's on a dirt bike. And then all the other times it's just Bruce, and the relationship between Bruce and Alfred is kind of rocky, and as Bruce is being quite reckless, really, and isn't listening to Alfred's advice or anything. In that moment, whenever he slaps Bruce, it's just incredible. It was so extremely emotional. I couldn't quite put my finger on how I was feeling about it, because I wasn't sure if I was horrified or if I was cheering for Alfred. Tell Bruce what's what and all that kind of stuff. And either way, I'm just really loving 0 year. But I was actually thinking about the Batman versus Superman today, as somebody brought it up in a voicemail I was listening to just a few minutes ago on your show. And I was thinking, I wish that they wouldn't name it Batman versus Superman, because to me that carries such kind of a, I don't even want to say cliche. I'm not quite sure what word I'm looking for, but it carries something of a vibe that I don't think that they should want for that movie. I wish they would call it something cool like World's Finest. To bring back to that. Bring it back to that comic book, where they teamed up, before the New 52, World's Finest. And at first I thought maybe, it was a marketing reason that they weren't doing that. But then, they have movies called The Dark Knight, which, doesn't say Batman in it, or Man of Steel. People know who those people are, but not everybody's going to know that. They're going to know who Batman and Superman are, but they may not know, if you're saying something about the Caped Crusader, they may not know you're talking about Batman. But, being that they have The Dark Knight and Man of Steel, I don't see why they couldn't call it World's Finest. I feel like that would just be a better name for it. Because I really don't want to see a movie where they fight all the time. I'm hoping that it's kind of they meet up, Batman calls Superman out on on things he did during Man of Steel. They have a little tiff, and there's a little issue in between the two of them, but they realize that they both stand for something and come together, and we see moments like what we see in Batman, Superman, and Superman Unchained recently. I loved Superman Unchained, the second issue, whenever the moments between Clark and Bruce are just awesome, and I would love to see that brought to the big screen. And, I really just love this whole New 52 turnout. It's really helped me as a new reader. There were a few things that I had issues coming into, like Batman Incorporated and Action Comics. I really wanted to get into Action Comics, but it was just so out there and that I couldn't afford to keep getting it because I couldn't wrap my mind around it, and I wasn't able to quite understand Grant Morrison's writing. I've got quite a bit stockpiled, and I'm gonna pick them up probably this week sometime. I'm gonna try and read through them, and maybe I can start. But I was wondering what you guys thought of his finale to Batman Incorporated. I felt it was a little underwhelming, to be honest. I'm gonna read it again.
Hey Logan, welcome to the show and to the world of comics. And your message got cut off at the end there, but you made up a lot of interesting points there. And one of the things, first of all, I want to thank you for calling in, because I'm always fascinated by the avenues that people come into comics from. In your case, you're coming as a gamer, which I really respect because I love the Batman Arkham games and I love gaming in general. But you, through playing that game, you realize, wow, I really love the character of Batman. It's an opportunity to continue my journey with Batman. I actually hope you're reading the Batman Arkham tie-ins. There's various tie-in comics to the games, and they're really, really good. DC's really hitting a home run with a lot of their video gaming tie-ins, and that's one I'm particularly enjoying. But taking a step back then, you mentioned the title, Superman versus Batman. I don't know, or Batman versus Superman, whatever it is. I don't know if that's the official title or not. If it is, though, I think one of the disadvantages of World's Finest is I don't know, for the casual person like you're mentioning with the Cape Crusader and things like that people would recognize World's Finest. You could do Superman Batman World's Finest, then you've got what you're talking about. Or Batman Superman World's Finest, and you've got what you're talking about. You're right, there's a cliche aspect because there's Aliens versus Predator and things like that, so there's that avenue, and I get that point. But it also puts people in a mindset when they're walking in, you're going to see a fight between Superman and Batman. I don't know that it has to be the whole film, though. We don't know yet what the premise of the film is going to be. What is going to cause these two to fight? Are they going to fight? I'm taking that's pretty much so, with the whole premise there, the whole point. We're going to kind of see how would Batman do against Superman. And I think that's something that's interesting. But there's got to be a point in the film where the two of them come together, especially if this is going to build on a DC franchise. And how do you go from fighting into a friendship and all that? A lot of this stuff is cliche in comics, but not on the screen. We haven't seen two iconic superheroes like that. I'm trying to think of on the DC end, where they have come together on the screen after fighting each other. And what is going to bring them together? What catastrophe, what villain, what event is going to bring these two together and on the same page? And how are we going to see the forging of the friendship that we all know and love in the comics? So that's the part where it's going to be something, I think, uniquely different than anything we've seen on the screen before with those characters. I guess I'm biased because I have a lot of confidence in the creative teams that have been working on both the Batman franchise and the Superman franchise lately, that they understand these characters enough to deliver something that, on the surface, you're right, sounds cliche, but on the screen is going to be anything but. It's going to deliver the moments that we geek out and look forward to, whether you're a gaming fan, an animation fan, or a comic fan. So all of those things can come together. But you're making some interesting points, and those are films that we want to see deliver the kinds of experiences that we're looking for from these characters. from a geeky standpoint, when you were throwing out World's Finest as a title, I'm like, oh, I would so love that. So I'm in agreement with you that the inner geek in me is like, yeah, that would be awesome. But I think that it wouldn't draw the same crowd that Batman versus Superman would, if that's the title. You know, I don't know. Maybe watch. It'll be Batman, Superman, World's Finest. That'll wind up being the title. And that'll be great. Who cares? The important thing is seeing these two iconic characters be brought together on the screen. And you were talking about the Scott Snyder issues for Villains Month, and he definitely is prepared for it. He and Ray Fawkes are doing the Batman 23.2 issue, The Riddler. And the events from Zero Year are going to continue to affect the Riddler today, and that's one of the key focuses. That comes out September 11th, and that's going to be the issue that they're focusing on. So yes, Zero Year has been planned into it. Obviously, it's going to be a break from Zero Year, but tie into Zero Year and to say how did these events in present day affect the Riddler of today. So it's kind of cool. I'm with you. Zero Year is fantastic. You mentioned Grant Morrison's work. Grant Morrison is one of those writers, and that is incredibly interesting. I have to do, I'm going to admit my own ignorance when it comes to Grant's writing a lot of times. I have to do a lot of rereading a lot of times. But what I find interesting about Grant's work is when I reread it, I catch things that I didn't catch the first time through. His reading for me tends to be dense, in the sense that, there's a lot going on and a lot of subtext and things like that. And I really like it. He's a writer that challenges the way that I look at comics and what comic storytelling can be. So I have to do, it sounds like you and I are similar in the sense that you have to do some rereading to kind of wrap your head around what he's talking about. I really enjoyed his Action Comics run. It was something different from him. It was an interesting look at a different way of looking at the Superman mythos and how he's created. I really enjoyed his kind of take, the Superman of the T-shirt and all the places that it went, and the introduction of the suit and what that all meant. There was a lot of great things going on in that title for me that I really enjoyed. His Batman stuff was stellar. I don't know if you had a chance to read R.I.P., but that was something that I just really thought was a home run from him. Batman Incorporated, when you mentioned that, the ending of Batman Incorporated, that's an interesting puzzle for me. I enjoyed it. I found it satisfying. It wasn't the explosive finale. I get what you're saying there, but it kind of tied up everything into a neat bow. Going back to his work, there was a lot of story arcs in Batman Incorporated and everything beforehand, because it's kind of a summation of everything that he did from the start of his run straight on through. I don't know how much of his run on Batman you've read, so it's kind of hard to tell. For me, having read all of his run, I found it to be a satisfying ending because it tied up all the loose ends of his run, but yet left an opening for writers in the future to delve into some of the things, some of the toys that he created for the Batman world. But that's speaking as somebody who's read everything from start to finish. But it wasn't your explosive ending that, I get what you're saying. It wasn't the kind of, whoa, kind of ending. So I get your point there. But I really enjoyed the ending. It was, I guess the ending read a lot more to me like an epilogue than an explosive Big Bang kind of ending. So that's kind of how I'm taking it. It felt like epilogue material. And I don't mean that as an insult. It just kind of, with how epic and huge his run has been, how long he was associated with the Batman books, and how he told one large story that tapped up there. It read like an epilogue that kind of closed up and tied into a neat bow everything that he did, leaving room open for other creators to deal with it in the future. So that's kind of my take on it. But it's definitely different than what you would consider a finale. So I see your side of it, too, and where you're coming from in that. So it's hard to talk about without knowing how much you've read of that entire run, because he was on the book for quite a long time in the regular Batman title as well. I'm glad you shouted out Pandora. I'm loving Pandora. I think Pandora is an amazing title. And it's one of those books that I'm with you. I wasn't sure walking into it how I was going to feel about the book. I encourage everybody listening to pick up a book like Pandora. That's on this episode we talk about the Movement and Green Team. I'm big fans of both of those books. I love Pandora, Phantom Strangers associated with the Trinity War. Animal Man. I could go on and on about just some of the characters that are lesser known characters in the DC universe, or like Pandora, a completely new character since Flashpoint. There's a different kind of reading experience when you're reading these characters who are newer or not as well known. There's more of a danger to them. There's a more personal story to them because they don't have this rich history backstory that Batman does, a Superman does, an Aquaman, Wonder Woman. Those characters have certain key elements that are, and they're wonderfully amazing elements that have been around for so many rich years. And there's a history and expectation that we have walking into those titles. But with Pandora, you don't have that. You don't have that baggage. So it's a different sort of reading experience. And there's an interesting balance of having a comic like Pandora it's a character that's new and fresh, it's a completely clean slate, and a Batman with its longevity and its rich history, and creators, I should say, are trying something new and different. He mentioned Snyder's work, and Logan, I agree with you. Snyder's work has been absolutely fantastic on Batman. It's just that I'm finding that to be really engaging. I'm a Batman junkie. I've grown up since I was a little kid. I'm 42 now, and Batman's always been my guy. And it amazes me that creators like Scott Snyder can still really redefine for me what Batman storytelling is, make me think of Batman storytelling in a different way, challenge me, get me excited, and just take it in new directions. And 0 Year's doing that. And it sounds like it sounds like it's doing that for you too, because you're like saying, I'm concerned about Villains Month because, did Snyder plan for that? And Scott Snyder, I think at this point is one of the higher tier writers at DC because he's involved with Batman. So I'm sure when they're doing events like the Villains Month, they consult with him on how to make that flow for Batman work into whatever big major story he's doing because of the nature of his Batman book. So I'm sure that he's consulted, and he's one of the people that are kind of brought in to make sure that his Batman world is not disrupted by an event like that. And I appreciate that. I actually think, all the titles should have that kind of transition. And it sounds like from the way they're talking about the event, certain titles are going to tie directly, like when Villains Month happened, they're going to continue on afterwards and be reflecting what's going on in Forever Evil, while other books are going to continue on in their normal fashion, probably like 0 Year. And what's going to happen with those titles is they are going to catch up to whatever happens in Forever Evil afterwards. So we'll see how that all plays out. I'm very interested to see where things go in the future. Your love for Marvel's welcome here. I grew up being an X-Men junkie. I'm still an X-Men fan. I'm a fan of characters like Daredevil that Marvel's doing. I have not had a chance to read Hawkeye yet. I've heard nothing but good things. I'm reading Fantastic Four like you are in FF. I think they're great books. I tend to get, because of the nature of the podcast that we do, I tend to get behind on my Marvel where I end up stockpiling them. And I don't want to say that in an insulting fashion because Marvel, like DC, like a lot of the indies that are out there, I'm also enjoying companies like Valiant. The publishing output of all of these companies is really fantastic. I think the creative genius that's involved in comics right now is just bar none, hands down, top notch. So I am fascinated by these people that don't like their comics now, because it's like, really, you're spending that much time reading stuff that you're not enjoying when there's this much product out there. It's so easy to jump off of one book that's kind of so-so to you and grab something that's fantastic with the rich talent that's involved in comics nowadays. So I'm glad that you're shouting out some of the Marvel books that you're enjoying. It's one of the things, I hope the theme of this podcast is always to make sure you're picking up comics that are blowing your mind. And if you have these books that are making you angry or frustrated or something like that, jump ship and get some of these amazing titles that are out there. The landscape's too diverse in comics right now. But I appreciate you as a gaming fan jumping into comics from gaming, because I don't know how many people are doing that. And I think a gamer is a ready-made comic fan. The storytelling in gaming, if you look at it, is very much like the serialized storytelling in comics. What do we like about gaming? The fact that you can spend many, many hours with these rich characters. I'm a fan of I'll just throw out an example of a game I like. I'm a big fan of the Assassin's Creed series. And what I love about that is you get immersed into these characters' worlds, and when you're playing as that character, their history, their story unfolds before you, and they're long, they're rich, they're open worlds. It's serialized. It really feels like a serialized adventure. To me, anybody who's playing games like that are tailor-made for the comic book world. It's the same thing. And I'm glad to see that games like Arkham, and I'm sure you're excited for the amazingly looking Arkham Origins that's coming out. I think any of the gaming fans are tailor-made for comics. So I'm glad to see people jumping over from gaming to comics. And I encourage you, any of your gaming friends, to encourage them to do the same. It's for anybody listening to this. Really point them to comics that are similar to the games they're playing. There's a lot out there. That Call of the Juarez I'm playing right now, the Gunslinger, I believe that's the title of it, and apologize. The bounty hunter that's in it is amazing. I'm really enjoying the story. It's my first Call of the Juarez game, and because of the bundle that I bought with it, it had all the other games. I'm anxious to go back and play them, but this one in particular, I'm just enjoying it. It's a fun little Western romp. But I'm thinking of a game like that, if I had a friend of mine who was playing it, I would point them to All-Star Western. They could read Jonah Hex and kind of get pulled into a Western world. There's a lot of titles out there, horror gaming fans. There's a ton of horror-related comics that are really ready-made for them. Actually, a lot of, you mentioned Justice League Dark, that and a lot of DC's supernatural characters like Animal Man, Swamp Thing, things like that are ready-made for people like that to read. So it's cool to see a gaming fan jump over to comics, and I like how you're tying it in with animation you grew up with and cards and things like that, because comics are ready-made swag. As a gamer, I love picking up the collector's editions and things like that, where you get the statues and the extra little add-ons and things like that, or a poster or whatever for your room. I'm into all that kind of stuff. I actually have from one of the Assassin's Creed's game, the Jack in the Box, that pops out, which is kind of cool. So I think fans like that, comics are swag, and you should really introduce any of your friends that are into that kind of stuff to comics, because I think those worlds are really nicely interconnected. I'm excited for the Moby, the Infinite Crisis one. So excited. I ended up doing the $100 deal where you get all the extra ability to buy add-ons for your characters, and you get 12 unlocks right away, and you get the 2 hidden costumes, like the Batman Arkham City costume and then the special Gotham by Gaslight character of Batman. I just like that kind of stuff. So I'm tossing a lot of that at the top of my head, but that's kind of the neat thing about gaming. But thank you very much for calling. Welcome to the show. And I love hearing a gamer coming into comics and having that first experience. I hope that comics continue to be this avenue for you. And I hope you get a chance to continue exploring different comics, and kind of seeing what titles make a high top stack for you. You're right. Money is always an issue there. There's a lot of comics I want to read that people are telling me are just plain awesome throughout, the comics world, that I can't fit into my budget. Not even just my budget, my time. I would love to read everything that's published in the previous catalog. I just don't have the time or the money to do that. I wish I did, though. It's a great time, though, that we're not sitting here having this discussion. Imagine if you were saying this. Wow, I can't find a single comic I like. Our problem is there's too many good ones, and we don't have enough money or time to read them all. That's a good problem to have. And may comics always offer that problem to us, where there's too much good product, we're not able to read it all. That means we can always make the perfect pull list.
Hey, Sean and Jim, it's Ed from DCComicNews.com. Some news broke this week that Justice League 3000 is going to be delayed from October all the way to December. And I was just wondering what your guys' thoughts were about this title. Is this one that you guys are looking forward to? There's been a significant amount of buzz on our website about the fact that this is something guys are looking forward to, and I was wondering if you guys were going to be pulling this one down, and if this was going to be a top-of-the-stack read for you, or something you guys might be picking up later. So if you guys got any thoughts on Justice League 3000 and its delay, I'd love to hear it. And for everyone listening, please come over to dccomicnews.com and get your latest DC news. Hey, thanks, guys, for another great podcast. Talk to you soon. Bye.
I mentioned on a recent podcast, or San Diego News one, how much I love the site DC Comics News. The way that they organize, if you're a DC fan, it's just a great place to go. They organize news from around the web, all the DC news in one spot, so you can really get your fix of, and to me, I want to know things that are going on. I want to know things that are going about writers, artists, new books like Justice League 3000. I know how Jim is. Jim's like I am on this one. I get really excited for new titles. I love to give new titles a chance, to see creative teams kind of take characters and concepts that we know and love and kind of turn them in a new direction. I like also concepts of the future. And what is the future going to look like? And this Justice League 3000 looks like it's going to explore the DC future in a way that we haven't seen before, or maybe we haven't seen in a while, which anytime it's something that we haven't seen in a while, like, DC's 1 million years ago, or they did stuff like that, there's a chance for writers to do something new with it because it's today's sensibilities, today's storytelling sense. It'll reflect today's idea of the future. Because that's the interesting thing. We've progressed so far as a society with our technology and, smartphones and different things like that. What are they going to do in Justice League 3000 to showcase a future that'll wow us today? So I'm excited for that. And who are these characters? Who is the Superman, the Batman, the Wonder Woman? Who are all these characters? The Flash. Who are these characters in the future? Are they relatives of our heroes? Is it our Superman? Because we know in previous storytelling, our Superman is able to survive that. And I mean, like, survive that sense of dying, longevity. Superman lives. I don't know if those rules still apply to him in the New 52. It'd be interesting to see how that's going to go. There's a lot of avenues on who these characters could be. I'm excited about the book. I know that the artist has changed on there recently, and I've shared on the show before, anytime there's creative changes to books, especially when they're favorite creators like Kevin Maguire and people like that, my first concern is, where am I going to get my fix from that creator? My second concern is, what does this book look like now? Because I'm into this book. It's been a buzz book. I'm into future storytelling, and I want to see what they're going to do with these characters. So that's kind of where I'm at. It's a very interesting book. No, it hasn't changed where it's at on my stack. I guess I'm of this mindset. I want them to put this book out when it's ready, and they've got a creative team who's ready to deliver it. It's interesting how a lot of news is developed nowadays and put out nowadays about creative changes on books, and it always seems when that happens, there's a negative connotation to it. And I don't know on this one, what happened behind the scenes. I don't know that I need to know what happened behind the scenes. My first thought and feeling is always, I want to make sure, hopefully, all the creators have work. They're involved in books that they're excited to work on. So whatever, if this didn't work out, that Kevin Maguire's happy about the new book that he's on, and that the new artist is gelling well with the creative team that he's working with or she's working with. And that's the kind of my thought process on all that. I want everyone to be happy, and that they deliver a book that's going to be satisfying to me as a fan. That's where I start getting selfish. I want my book, that's interesting and exciting for me. I want everybody to kind of be happy and for me to get my fix. So I read a lot of titles, and when something is different, like Justice League 3000, I get excited for that immediately because that's a different sort of book. It's not set in current continuity. It's set in future continuity. And is it going to reflect things that are currently going on in the New 52? Because there's a chance for things that are happening now to affect the future. So we'll see. We'll see what that all looks like. But I'm excited. Another question would be, are these our heroes from modern day? Is that what happened to them? Did they get sent to the future? Is that why they're off the table? I don't know. And I'm just throwing out that as a wacky solution. But that's what happens with books like that. You start speculating, why is there a Justice League 3000? Where did they come from? And who are they? And I'm excited to see whatever that is. I don't care what that is. The writers look fantastic. I'm excited for the art team to be, something that I'm really excited and interested in. And I want to see every creator land on their feet and to be able to deliver product that's interesting and exciting to me from wherever they're working at.
How's it going, Sean Jim? This is Brandon calling out New Orleans again. A couple of quick comments this week. I just got finished reading Red Lanterns 22, and man, I gotta tell you, this is it's a pretty good, fun book. You know, I called a week back talking about how the Flash was some good old fun, and it's weird to say, but the Red Lanterns was that same kind of good old fun this week. It was really funny. I laughed out loud a couple of moments. I couldn't believe it. This was one of the books I was I hate to say disappointed with it in the beginning, but I was mulling over whether to stay on or not, and you know, I decided to stay on for the creative change to see where they were going to take it. And the first issue, you know, I thought it was good. It didn't wow me or anything like that, but it was definitely, you know, seeing Guy Gardner transition. I was weird about it because I was digging what we got from him in, you know, Green Lantern Corps and the backstory we got with him. And, you know, he went from being one of my least favorite Green Lanterns to definitely not my favorite, but at least better understood than before. So I was weary as to seeing him as a Red Lantern, but I gotta say I loved him in this issue. I loved the way it went. You know, we had the beginning with him all raged out from getting the ring, you know, not in control of himself, and Blee's basically, you know, going, hey, this is awesome. He's going to be my little personal torpedo. I can aim him wherever I want, and boom, use him as you know, a weapon. And all the time the whole group is arguing. You've got Rancor. This is one of those moments I laughed out loud. Just in the background, nobody noticing. You know, he's the only one that makes constructs. He's basically got Guy in a construct floating over the blood pool and drops him in there while everybody's arguing. Bleed, of course, freaks out about this, and you know, we go on to him coming out of the blood pool eventually, kind of in his right mind now, and has an argument with Bleeds, and just basically starts to tear down everything that the book has been for the you know, the last 20-something issues. You know, I wouldn't say everything that you would complain about, but definitely everything that's kind of dragged on for a while. And, you know, we wanted to see something more with this book and some forward momentum. He pointed out, you know, he's like, hey, where do we sleep? Here? Really? This kind of sucks. Yeah, I'm definitely seeing why we're mad and ragey, but this is not the way to be mad and ragey. Let's go be mad and ragey about something else. So he flies off into space and it's like, we're gonna find a new home, and he finds a ship with some bad people on it, you know, takes over the ship, we find out some bad things. You know, I'm not going to go into too much detail. I'm skimming it over, not doing it justice at all at that point. But, you know, it's an epic fight. You know, we get Guy Gardner raging, blood spattering everywhere. And, you know, I'm not too sure. I'm looking over the issue. I don't think Guy can do constructs with the Red Lantern or not either. I know I've seen him shoot laser beams with his ring, but that's about it. So can you guys answer that? You know anything about that, Sean? Can he do constructs? Or I guess that's something maybe we'll find out, because I know he was a Red Lantern before, but I didn't see much into that earlier on. But anyway, I can't believe to say that Red Lanterns is good fun. And, you know, what's going on now is kind of what I was looking for in the book before. You know, it seems they have purposes. Peter Mulligan did this once or twice in his series where they went off on a couple of little missions, but I think he was really derailed by all the events that were going on in the book, so he never got to bring them anywhere long term. So maybe that wasn't really his fault. So I wouldn't say that his run was bad, but it was just, you know, stagnant in some places. It lacked forward momentum. And now we're getting that in these two issues. And in this issue, it seemed very momentous, very cool. I dug it. It was scary, gory, and awesome. So I'm going to continue on with it, and I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts. If it's something you picked up, if it hasn't been something you've read because of before, go ahead and catch up on it because it's some good fashion fun. But anyway, to touch on one more subject before I leave, I've heard some casting rumors for Man of Steel 2, and I love getting into the casting thing. I hate going into what the movie's going to be about until they start anything. I even hate to go into it at that point. But I love the casting rumors because, we all have in our head who our fan cast would be. And Batman, it seems to be there's some rumors of Josh Brolin. I'm not too sure if I would like Josh Brolin. Maybe if they were going whole Dark Knight-ish, I could see him being, the really dark, brooding Batman, but I'm not too sure I'd want to go that way. Perfect Batman in my head is actually, Carl Urban. I think he would be awesome, but Lex Luthor was the big news I heard this week, and two big names. One I've been talking about for a good while is Bryan Cranston. Phenomenal work on Breaking Bad, and the guy, if you've seen him on Malcolm in the Middle, he's got some range in him. To go from being the comedic guy on Malcolm in the Middle to the bad genius in Breaking Bad, he's good. So I always thought he would make a good Lex Luthor. But the other name that was thrown out was Mark Strong, and I never thought of him as Lex Luthor for the pure reason of he was Sinestro, and I loved him so much as Sinestro. I wanted him another go round in that movie, and I guess I still hold on to wanting something more from that movie and, holding on to him as Sinestro. But the more I think about it, that would probably be a good Lex Luthor. And I wonder if you have any thoughts on what you guys think. But love listening to the show again, guys. Take it easy.
I get into all the casting rumors, too. I kind of take them with a grain of salt because a lot of times casting rumors might be people that were approached or thrown out in passing, or sometimes they're just, from a wish list that somebody had from a website. Bryan Cranston, I absolutely, 100% would love as Lex Luthor. Mark Strong, I thought was excellent as Sinestro. I think for a lot of the reasons you're mentioning, both actors work. Range. Lex Luthor is a character that needs a great amount of range because he's such a diverse character. There's times where he's your ultimate good guy. One of the things I loved about Smallville explored all facets of the character. And I think that's why he worked so well on Smallville. So I would love to see whoever the actor is, play that kind of Lex Luthor where there's times where you're not sure how to view him, a good guy, a bad guy, what have you, because I think that stuff is kind of cool, where you play those kind of avenues with the character. With Batman, it's a very interesting thing. I'm always excited for a character to be cast and for us to do Batman film. I have so started to identify Christian Bale as Batman that I need to see whoever the actor is that they cast as Batman. I need to see him in the role, and I need to see that actor convince me that they're Bruce Wayne and Batman. So they've got to be very careful in the casting. I agree with you that the actor that they cast needs to be geared around the age range of the Batman and the tone of the Batman. And I'm going to be very curious to see who they choose. There's a lot of facets of Batman's personality and Batman's story and different creative work on Batman where you could cast a variety of different actors as the Dark Knight depending on what tone and what focus you're going to give them. So I'm curious to see where they're going with it. I could see Josh Brolin working depending on which Batman they're doing. So it's going to be interesting to see who it is. I've heard a lot of rumors on Batman. Very similar, it sounds like, to what you have heard as well. So I'm going to be curious to see how that all pans out and which character it's going to be. I'm excited. I think it's very, very interesting, and I'm super excited to see that film, to see the casting rumors, and what direction they wind up going in with the character. Jumping back to Red Lanterns, you mentioned about constructs. And my understanding is, in the previous storytelling, was that Rancor was the only one that could do constructs, because I believe Bleez wanted Rancor's ability to do constructs because of that. And I think, she was really trying to get in good with Rancor to be able to develop constructs on her own, because she looked at that as something that would help her become kind of the head honcho Red Lantern because of that. Now, it's interesting when you've got a Green Lantern coming over to Red Lanterns, what part of his history as a Green Lantern will transfer into being a red, from a Green Lantern to a Red Lantern? Will being constructs in Green Lantern make him able to do that as a Red Lantern? I don't know. And I'll be curious to see that, because a lot of times we saw a guy wearing more than one ring, or we have seen him do that in storytelling. So I don't know. I don't know what that's going to play out like. And is that something that can Rancor do it because he's an Earth Lantern? I don't know. I don't know that would make sense, and that's the only reason, because Green Lanterns that make constructs don't have to be Earth-based as well. But I wonder if that history for him will be the thing that gives him that edge. I don't know. It's an interesting conundrum and puzzle. Anyway, I want to thank everyone for calling on this episode. Remember, our show voicemail line is 1-440-388-4434 or Dr. Norge on Skype. And I want to thank everyone for being part of the show. Remember, that's always in the show notes. It's on our website in the About Us section. We want you a part of the show. So please consider joining in the conversation. We love hearing your thoughts.
Holy caffeine!
I want to shout out RagingBullets.com, where Jim Durden has his own column, Direct Currents 2.0. He updates it weekly. It's an amazing column. I want to thank Jim and welcome him to RagingBullets.com. Also at RagingBullets.com, show news, updates on where the podcast is headed, contact information for us. I update that and connect that with Twitter, Facebook. We also have Google Plus, if people want to get in contact with that way. I also want to shout out our amazing Facebook group. We have an amazing Facebook group full of terrific people. If you are looking for a chat community, stop by our Facebook group. They're really, really cool. And I want to thank everyone who participates in that, because it has grown so far beyond the show. And that's one of the great things about social media, is that people are able to take that beyond the original intention. I intended originally to be kind of a spot for people to talk about the show. I love that it's gone. It talks about all of pop culture, and it's a great community of people over there. If you haven't had a chance to join it, pop on in over at RagingBullets.com. I want to tell everybody, if you have a blog, a podcast, anything relating to comics or pop culture that you would love to shout out to our friends, please go ahead and do it over at our Facebook group. Call into the show. It's a great opportunity for you to promote your stuff and get a conversation going on our podcast. We love that. I'm a big fan of cross-promotion. I know a lot of you have been friends of ours and shouted us out on your shows, on your websites, and things like that. Please feel free to use our voicemail line and Facebook group and things like that to shout out your material, because I'm a fan of that, and I think that's really, really fantastic. I love the community aspect of podcasting. We're all friends here. We're all geeks who love this kind of material, so I think it's really, really great. Once again, sponsoring this episode is DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com. Remember that Vertigo bundle, Sandman Overture #1, Cover A, Coffin Hill #1, Hinterkind #1, and The Witching Hour #1. $18.96 regularly, 50% off, only $9.48. Thank you, DCBService.com, for being an amazing pre-order source. Over at InStockTrades.com, deal after deal after deal, like Nightwing, Old Friends, New Enemies, the trade paperback, 160 pages, classic artwork, $14.99 regularly, 50% off, only $7.49. Orders of $50 or more give you free shipping. Thank you, DCBService.com and InStockTrades.com, for continuing to support our show. Please go to RagingBullets.com and click on the handy-dandy banners there to link to those sites and check out the material that you can save money on. Because I'm a big fan of, in this day and age when we're all watching our money, being able to get more comics for your buck. And those websites will offer you the opportunity to do that. They support a ton of podcasts, so please consider supporting them. Jim, on our next episode, I want to shout out that we're going to jump back to our content we were supposed to do with this episode was a follow-up on Trinity War. We are going to do that second part of that discussion, and we're going to make that the main focus of our next episode. And we'll also talk about some other material. Jim and I will kind of iron that out. We'll probably do a lot of what we did today, where we'll kind of go to some books that we've been enjoying lately, that we've wanted to shout out. Books, character concepts, and things like that as we catch up on Trinity War as well. So we will see everyone next week.
Bye.
Flying through space and time, 1,000 different lifetimes. Fated for love and flaws and incredibly clear sightlines. Swinging your mace around, such a practical outlook. Helping the JSA and occasionally supporting your own book. Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see. Hawkman, your plan and what you do to me. Hawkman. The villains are closing in, be they Thanin Guard or Egyptian. Working so hard to thwart you and Hawkgirl's mission. The odds are not on your side, and danger seems to stack up. Things would be so much easier if you would just call for backup. Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see your plan and what you do to me. Hawkman, Hawkman, eagle eyes can't see.